Hey, I'm Jess Hopkins, and welcome to your three-part series about the #1 skill millennials need for sustainable success: self-compassion. Now, I know most of you are probably thinking, what? Self-compassion? No. Millennials are lazy and entitled. What they really need are resilience and grit. And while I totally agree that those are really important and valuable qualities, let me explain why self-compassion is so critical. Millennials have grown up in a culture that absolutely worships achievement, success, and perfection. And subsequently, they are terrified of failure and rejection. And that fear of failure tends to go one of two very destructive ways. On one end of the spectrum, fear of failure pushes millennials into overdrive, where they completely overbook and overwork themselves until they're totally burned out, riddled with anxiety, and melting down. On the other end of the spectrum, the same fear of failure can work in the exact opposite way, where it becomes so overwhelming and paralyzing that many millennials quit before they even get started. They think to themselves, well, if it can't be done perfectly, then why should I even bother at all? And so begins a negative pattern of giving up and throwing in the towel. So you see, whether your millennial is a perfectionistic overachiever or a disengaged non-starter, you're actually dealing with opposite sides of the exact same fear of failure coin. And this is precisely why self-compassion is the #1 skill your millennial needs to shift out of self-defeating behaviors and maximize their potential. So what exactly is self-compassion? Self-compassion means extending compassion to oneself in instances of perceived inadequacy, failure, or general suffering. Dr. Kristen Neff, the leading researcher on this topic, has defined self-compassion as being composed of 3 main components: mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. And this video is all about the first component, mindfulness. Essentially, mindfulness means paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. Another way to think of mindfulness is the practice of building the capacity to notice. So how does this play into self-compassion? Well, we all have this little voice in our minds called the inner critic. And that critic just loves to tell us that we're not good enough, not smart enough, not cool enough, not pretty enough, and so on. And those thoughts tend to trigger a whole bunch of negative feelings like fear, sadness, and hopelessness. What's crazy is that most of us are so used to the voice of our critic that we don't even notice when it's talking. I like to think of it this way. Imagine your inner critic is like the ticker tape that runs across the bottom of the screen on CNN. Most of the time, we're focused on the main news story. But every now and then, we glance down and zoom in on that ticker tape for just a quick few seconds and focus our attention entirely on the running headlines. We take that information in and let it land, but in the blink of an eye, we return our attention back to the main story and completely disengage from the ticker tape all over again. This is exactly how we relate to our inner critic. Most of the time, we don't even notice it, but occasionally we hear it loud and clear, and when we take that self-criticism in, it creates a whole domino effect of negative feelings. And what tends to happen when we get flooded by those negative feelings? Well, sometimes we become so consumed by those feelings that we wind up emotionally drained and totally paralyzed. And other times, we completely deny those feelings altogether and distract ourselves with a box of Oreos or the treadmill or the latest binge-worthy show on Netflix. Either way, we wind up suffering. So, in order to shift out of those unhealthy coping patterns, we have to first become aware of the moments in which we need self-compassion most. Through mindfulness, we can build our capacity to notice our inner critic in real time as it's happening, and to simply observe the thoughts without beating ourselves up or shutting ourselves down. The bottom line is, we can't change something that we're not yet aware of. So the practice of deepening our awareness through mindfulness is a critical first step. Now, there are lots of different ways to practice mindfulness, but one of the most scientifically valid strategies for improving awareness is mindful meditation. Research shows that meditating just 5 minutes a day can make a huge positive impact on all areas of our life, including things like attention and focus, relationship satisfaction, self-esteem, productivity, and more. So, step number 1 to becoming more self-compassionate is to practice increasing your mindfulness. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video as we dive into the second component of self-compassion, common humanity.